Okay, so I hope everyone is staying at home and staying safe. And for this afternoon, my name is Sarah Villavicencio. I will be your host as well as your presenter for our webinar for this month. So, just to introduce, we are conducting a monthly webinar series, which we call GIS Conversations. You can look at this, check out more information about this through our events page in our Esri Singapore website. Now, for this afternoon, we will be talking about visualizing future structures now, the power of GeoBIM. So just to make sure that you are signed in at the correct um, GoToWebinar link. Okay, so before I actually kick off with our agenda, I would like to launch a quick poll just to see if you have used ArcGIS Pro before. Okay, couple more seconds as we are collecting the responses. You just select the radio buttons between yes and no. Okay, all right. So let's have a look at the results of our poll. So 53%, it's quite a very close number. 53% have used ArcGIS Pro before, and 47% rather have not used it yet. So, okay, we have quite a good number. Don't worry, this won't be about ArcGIS Pro. It's not going to be a crash course of how to work with BIM in ArcGIS Pro. It's more of a conceptual GeoBIM introduction webinar that we will be having for this afternoon. Right. So let's now proceed with visualizing future structures now, the power of GeoBIM. So our agenda for this afternoon first is we will be looking at some trends within the built environment, specifically the common challenges that the whole AEC sector is currently facing. And of course, we will be introducing the concept of GeoBIM. We will be looking at some GeoBIM workflows as well as use cases, both local and international. And we will be debunking GeoBIM myths as well as looking at some examples of how you can work with your BIM data structures within the ArcGIS environment. And then finally, for our quick demonstration, I will be showing you two particular tools within ArcGIS Pro that was released in the latest version, that's version 2.5, that can work with GeoBIM. Right, so with that, let's head out and get started. Now, as mentioned earlier, we will be talking about trends, particularly challenges that the AEC sector is facing. So let's first look at the general challenges. Let's look at a more broad perspective of some of the challenges that we face. First is productivity and profitability. Now, because of high competition between projects, it is expected that profit margins will be depleted. So this then result to reinvestment potential reductions within the projects that you have within your company. Underperforming projects is another challenge that we face. So projects are growing more complex nowadays, and the larger the project, rather, the more complicated it tends to be. So of course, if you're faced with a complicated project, there is a certain, or actually there is a higher level of efficiency that is being demanded by your clients or your main stakeholders. Third one is labor or skills shortage. So we are currently looking at generation shifts that are happening within the AEC sector, wherein from being predominantly dominated by baby boomers, there is a shift that's happening to Gen Xers or millennials, actually. Now, our fourth challenge that we face is sustainability. So I think for sustainability, this cuts across all sectors, not just in AEC, because consumers are growing more aware of the environmental impacts that our actions make. So, thus, there is suddenly an increased demand for sourcing of sustainable materials as well as enforcing sustainable practices. Another challenge that we face, and I think this is one of the key challenges that we face, particularly in the AEC industry, is safety issues. So, the AEC industry is one of the most dangerous industries, if you may, that requires a high cost for insurance as well as compensation for the whole workforce. And then finally, the final point that I would like to drive in terms of the common challenges that we face on a more general perspective is consistent technology usage. So there's been quite a number of studies conducted that looks at or that actually finds out that the AEC sector is one of the sectors that um, has a slow rate of adoption in technologies available there. But in fact, by adopting these technology platforms or technological platforms, it can further boost productivity within your workforce and eventually increase profitability. Aside from that, as mentioned, and in relation to the whole shift of generation of the laborers within the workforce, you can then attract new labor groups because of the noticeable advantages once you start enforcing and introducing technology usage within your organizations. So, looking at these broader challenges, let's have a look at the more specific or the user voices that are being currently discussed within meeting rooms in our sector. So, users would want to analyze a number of BIM models at the same time and have them placed within their correct geospatial position once they maybe start using them in ArcGIS Pro or in another geographic software application. They also would want to look at structures. They may be built structures, such as buildings or bridges, or natural objects, such as your trees, in line or in relation to other surrounding aspects, such as real time traffic information or your roadway designs. Users would also like to relate assets within other system of assets in the same location or in the same area of interest, a city, for example. And they also would like to see their service providers collaborate across complex projects within the same city. Aside from that, event management of moving of objects in the context of BIM and GIS data is also a key need that's currently being looked at or asked by the users themselves. And by pushing the envelope further, users would also want to not just visualize 3D models and intricate asset within the area of interest, but they also would like to perform analysis, look at spatial queries in the context of transportation, in the context of surrounding built and natural environments. So these are the general and the more intricate challenges that we face within the AEC sector. Now, to provide answers to those challenges, BCA has actually constructed this construction industry transformation map. So, this was crafted through the collective effort of industry practitioners, institutes of higher learning, union groups, and the government itself. Now, aside from the vision and the global trends that we see here, which are shaping the sector, there are also three key areas that will eventually transform the sector if we start to adopt them. Now, what are those three key areas? First is design for manufacturing and assembly. So you can have a look at these further within the BCA website, which I will be providing in my resources later on. Now, design for manufacturing and assembly allows for the automation of facilities and creates efficient processes within our industry. Now, the second key area for transformation is quite self explanatory, and it's the construction of green buildings. And the final key thrust or key area for transformation is the integrated digital delivery or the IDD. So I will expand on the IDD further, but in summation, these three thrusts or these three key areas are all aligned to transform the construction industry by creating this, which is a highly skilled workforce trained in using the latest technology in architecture, in the engineering, and construction, hence igniting the digital revolution of cities to create smart cities. Now, just to backtrack a bit, I would like to focus on IDD because I think it's quite interesting. Now, IDD is being enabled by one of the most commonly used digital data formats within the sector, which is BIM. Now, it fully integrates processes and stakeholders along the value chain through advanced info communication technologies as well as smart technologies. Now, looking at the four areas that we have here, first, we have your digital design, which engages stakeholders to achieve optimized and coordinated designs that allows the companies or the organizations to meet their clients' requirements as well as government regulations. Next is you have your digital fabrication, which allows for the automation of the offsite production, as we have mentioned earlier, under design for manufacturing and assembly as well. Another one is digital construction, which enables just in time delivery, installation, and monitoring of on site activities, hence maximizing productivity and minimizing rework. So you're being quite efficient within your processes therewith. And finally, you have your digital asset delivery and management that allows for real time monitoring for operations and maintenance to enhance asset values. Now, looking at these four components of IDD, what common theme can we all see here? So the common theme that we have been driving or the government has been driving for the transformation of the AEC sector is to go digital. So it is all centered on digitalization. So as I have mentioned earlier, since BIM enables IDD, BIM plays a key part within the integration of the BIM and GIS platforms, which then entails our GeoBIM concept or our GeoBIM process. Right, so before we look at the integrated component, let's first look at them separately. So in a nutshell, as you can see here, BIM supplies detailed information about your assets, while GIS provides information about your assets as well, but it is in the context of the built and natural environment. So, as BIM allows for the collaborative creation of your data, of your building structure data, it is being created or it is being centered within the construction and design realm. Whereas once GIS starts to enter the picture, yes, you're still dealing with the planning, construction, and design, which is essentially already captured by your BIM, but you're adding an additional component by allowing your users to make use of whatever is surrounding that particular structure that you would want to analyze or that you are planning to construct or build. Hence, GeoBIM is born. So GeoBIM, um, to define it, is a seamless integration of GIS, BIM, as well as CAD technologies that enables all project data. And by project data, we mean your infrastructure plans, your rendered models, your imagery information, your structural models can be combined or can be integrated with your topological information, your geologic information, as well as the environmental and built surroundings. And all of these data sets, all of your project data can actually be displayed and worked with within a central portal. So your GeoBIM is actually changing the way cities and utilities are designing, building, and managing resilient infrastructures. So, although initially we look at them as two separate entities, two separate technologies, you have your BIM and you have your GIS. Through GeoBIM, an integrated workflow was actually created that supports whatever is needed continuously within the infrastructure life cycles. So as you can see here, starting from your digital planning, conceptualization, design, which is primarily anchored within the BIM workflow that we see here, up to the operational process, real-time monitoring, and your maintenance and upkeep, which is on the GIS side of the workflow. um, they are all implemented to facilitate a seamless process of integration. So now that we have defined GeoBIM, let's have a look at one of the local use cases that we have here in Singapore, which is the Fungal Digital District. So I've just taken the artist's perspective on the left-hand side to the actually designed structures that is being deployed within the central portal, the GIS application that's on the right-hand side. So, just to provide information about the Punggol Digital District, it is a key building block of Singapore's smart nation vision. Now, Punggol, as we know of it, is in the northeast area of the island, and Punggol Digital District is a 50-hectare development which will house key business clusters in the digital economic sector. So think cybersecurity, IoT, machine learning, creation of sensors and digital technologies. Now, JTZ pioneered the project by making use of a contemporary approach to the digital building lifecycle model, which is GeoBIM. Now, GeoBIM played a key role by enabling JTC's designers and architects to visualize and understand the input of their designs on existing surrounding communities through a 3D mapping portal and further ensure optimized community outcomes. So it's not just about building a green building or creating a sustainable structure. It's also looking at the surrounding communities, the existing communities that are currently within the area where you would want to build your structures. Right. So just to give you a sneak peek of how the GeoBIM integration process actually comes into play, what you see on the left hand side is actually the whole conversion, the whole transformation logic that's happening in ArcGIS Pro. Should you decide to convert an IFC or a BIM model into a feature or a 3D feature. So what you see here on the right-hand side is the actual process of how it comes along from the transformation in the desktop software to the geo-referencing by placing where the structure should be on the surface of the earth, and then finally pushing it, or as we refer to it, publishing it into a web mapping application that is a scene viewer within your mobile browser. So it's basically the whole life cycle of how the GeoBIM transformation comes into play. Okay, so now let's proceed with another section in our webinar for this afternoon, which is about debunking GeoBIM myths. So we'll have about 5 GeoBIM myths that we will be debunking for this afternoon. And the first one is GeoBIM is just for visualizing beautiful designs in its environment. Actually, GeoBIM is a process that saves you time and money, and in turn allows you to achieve a high confidence outcome during the design and construction process. So, yes, since you are dealing with a very intricate 3D model, of course, it's going to be visually pleasing. But the whole GeoBIM concept allows you to um, be efficient and saves you time and money by looking at the possible impacts of the structure that you are building or are going to build within this particular area of interest. Next myth that we would like to debunk is that you cannot directly use BIM structures in GIS. You can actually directly load BIM structures directly into ArcGIS or ArcGIS Pro. This is because of the partnership that Esri has forged with Autodesk, thereby allowing you to make use of your IFCs, your BIM data structures, your BIM data models by directly dragging and dropping them and making use of them within ArcGIS Pro. So this is actually a part of the demo that I will be showcasing later on towards the end of our webinar. Aside from that, aside from direct load, um, both companies, Esri and Autodesk, are also creating plugins for you to seamlessly integrate and make use of their respective native data formats into the other platforms as well. Okay, moving on to our next GeoBIM myth is that GeoBIM is only useful for the understanding of the construction of the building and its environment. Now, BIM, sorry, BIM is a highly effective tool in terms of working with single structures. Yes, we have proven that for a very long time. But with the addition of GIS, you can further look at patterns with the building and its surrounding environment and analyze the existing relationships in the area. And this is exactly what the local use case, the Fungal Digital District, has applied um, when they are working on that particular project. So that's what JTC has implored in terms of working with and creating the Punggol Digital District. Okay, now our next GeoBIM myth that we would like to debunk is GeoBIM is only useful for times of peace. Now, in times of war, and especially with what we are facing right now with the COVID-19 global pandemic, planning is a key factor in terms of mitigating measures and in terms of quickly and effectively applying those measures. So GeoBIM gives you the ability to respond to the threat effectively by knowing the intricacies of the structures as well as the ins and outs and arounds of the affected area. So you're not just focusing on one specific item, but you are looking at the whole area that's being affected by the problem, by the issue. And now for our final myth that we would like to debunk: BIM and GIS integration is a daunting task. Well, it is not. It may seem like one because you are working with two highly technical platforms, Autodesk and Esri, ArcGIS Pro, but GeoBIM actually allows the users to explore and unleash the full potential of these two technologies. And aside from that, it allows you to work with your data holistically by looking at all factors that can be applied or that might affect the construction of the project that you have. GeoBIM workflows facilitate quick and easy integration and data sharing between these different platforms. So, hopefully, by debunking those 5 myths, GeoBIM does not seem like a very scary task for you to take on, or technologies in general may not be quite a scary um, area for you to work with. Okay, now for the most interesting part, let's go and have a look at some of the examples of your BIM data structures, your BIM structures within the ArcGIS platform. Right, so what you see here in the screen recording is actually a Revit file, a Revit model within Revit, within the main native application. So this is where you create your textures that you apply, your designs, and this is where you input asset information that you have for your, not just for your external structures, but for your internal structures as well. So, a key thing that I would like to note is regarding those asset information, they are actually maintained. Once you, as you can see here, immediately drag and drop the Revit data into your ArcGIS Pro local scene. So, as you can see here, the asset information that was captured or recorded within Revit is maintained and not deleted within your ArcGIS Pro platform or within your ArcGIS Pro application. So you can further export these to CAD or export these to file geodatabase depending on the use that you would want to apply on it. Okay, so moving forward, let's now look at a smaller scale project, or what I would like to refer to as a campus use case. So on the right hand side of the screen, right there we go. On the right hand side of the screen, you can actually see Okay, so on the left-hand side of the screen, what you see is actually an application designed by Esri, which is the Esri Campus Viewer. So the current location that's being captured here is the Esri headquarters in Redlands, California. So yes, we have been mentioning that GeoBIM is very practical, saves you time and money, and can of course maintain the asset information as well as the textures that you have applied when you created your 3D models in Revit. Aside from the visual factor, that is, of course, the main, the key agent for digitalization, GeoBIM also enables you to push the envelope further. As you can see here, the structures are being used for wayfinding, for inner wayfinding. So say for example, you are from M2SA Atrium and you would like to visit your colleague that is in another building or in the auditorium. You can make use of these to construct wayfinding platforms or wayfinding applications internally within your organization and externally as well within your customers and clients that you serve. Now, looking at a larger scale of application, we have the city use case. So this is sort of an inception that's happening here regarding GeoBIM. So the data was actually uploaded within ArcGIS Pro, and it's the whole cityscape captured in 3D. And what they would want to showcase is that basically what they did is they captured the whole cityscape and then applied it in on top of one of the buildings within the area just to showcase the power of the application. And then on the right hand side is an extension of what we have seen earlier from Revit to ArcGIS Pro integration or conversion, but this time it's actually being made use of or it's actually being seen within your mobile application. So from having it in Revit, adding it into ArcGIS Pro, converting it as necessary, and then publishing it to share to a wider audience, be it your whole organization or even sharing it to the general public or your clients and customers. So again, even if you place it on the web, even if you have it on the mobile platform already, your assets, your textures, your colors, of course, the built and natural environment surrounding it, as well as the asset information, are all being maintained and not left out, even if you have plotted it in the different applications aforementioned. Okay, so with that, let's have a quick demonstration of two of the tools, newly released tools in ArcGIS Pro 2.5 that allows you to work with BIM structures or BIM data. So let me just pop up my ArcGIS Pro project. So before I go on with the two tools, I would just like to highlight the capability to immediately make use of your Revit file within the ArcGIS Pro application. So I have my files here, which I have just downloaded from the Revit website itself. So they have the basic house project that they have created there for users to download and make use of. So I downloaded this one and made a folder connection on my ArcGIS Pro catalog going to BIM sample downloads. So I have house project.rvt, which is also shown here, house project. And basically, I will just do a quick drag and drop. Okay, so this particular data does not have the coordinate system, but as mentioned earlier, you can actually pre-create those. They're called control points, so that even if it's a Revit file, once you add it into a scene within ArcGIS Pro, it will immediately be placed to where it should be on the surface of the earth. So for this one, I turned off the ground elevation model since it doesn't have the proper coordinate system yet. But still, you can already have a look at the whole structure, even if it's still a Revit model. And aside from that, identify and look at the assets that are recorded within the Revit model itself. Right, so that's the first one. Now, let's go to the two new tools that are available within ArcGIS Pro 2.5. Now, since most of us, most of the attendees right now have not used ArcGIS Pro 2.5 yet. Um, if you are not on the latest version, what you can do is you can quickly go to Project About, and if you have enabled your application to immediately search for updates, that's where it should appear. So my version is currently up to date, version 2.5. Let's now go back to my scene. So what you see here is the Esri Singapore headquarters. We have actually moved our office since May of this year, 2020. Sorry, since May of 2019. Sorry. Um, in Alice at Mediapolis in One North, in Media Circle specifically. So what I have here is I have preloaded the Revit file of our building model. So it's this one, the architectural model of the Alice at Mediapolis building. I preloaded it because it's quite a big data, so it will take time to load. The bigger the data that you have, the longer the processing time, of course, for it to load. So again, this is still the Revit file, and the first tool that I would like to show is the BIM file to geodatabase. So before this tool was created, in order for you to convert your building layers, whether they are coming from a CAD file or a Revit file, you would either have to have the data interoperability extension that you see here on the top right hand corner of the screen for you to be able to convert. And it's a single layer conversion process. So if you have 20 layers, then it's still manageable to do it. But if you have 100 plus layers, it can be a daunting task. But with the creation of this new tool, BIM to File Geodatabase, all you need to do is input the BIM file workspace and then point it to the geodatabase that you would like it to be saved. Um, Apply the necessary spatial reference if you know what it is, and then simply click Run. So I have actually created one. I've pre-run one before, but let's go ahead and create one for the house. So I can go to my folders and actually let's try loading the Alice Revit source. So add in your BIM file workspace. Then I have my BIM to GIS GDB right here. Let's change this to GeoBIM GDB since that one is empty. And having the correct dataset that I have currently am showing here on the screen. I won't be applying the spatial reference for this one for now, but again, you can um, apply it if you do know what it is, and then just simply click Run and wait for the tool to run. So as we are waiting for that to completely convert, I can show you how it will look like eventually. So I have tested this out earlier and I used the same data set basically. So this item that you see here, although it is named the same as the Revit file, as you can see, it actually now contains native file geodatabase features. So I have a point feature class for certain locations within my building. And I have 3D multi-patch features right here. Basically, they are 3D objects. That's what we call the 3D objects that we have within ArcGIS Pro. So let's have a look if our process is complete. So now it's updating and it has successfully run. So we can have a look at our GeoBIM GDB. This is where we wanted it to be saved. Let me just do a quick right click to refresh this one. And there we go. So again, although it has the same name, you can rename it if you want. But just for the timing that we're running on the webinar, I just maintain the name for it. And then you can see that it has converted the layers into file geodatabase feature classes. So it definitely saves you time. It's definitely an efficient tool for you to make use of if you would want to perform um, conversions or transformations within your dataset. Now, the next tool, new tool that has been introduced in version 2.5 of ArcGIS Pro is the Create Building Scene Layer package. So this particular tool, if you hover over the tools in ArcGIS Pro, it will actually tell you what the tool does. So it creates a scene layer package from a building layer input. So just to note, why am I talking about this particular geoprocessing tool? It just creates a package. I mean, if you have used ArcGIS Pro before, packages are items that we make use of if we would want to um, quote and unquote upload or make use of our 3D models in web applications. So you're moving it or you're migrating it from desktop to your applications. Now, what's important to note about this is before this particular tool was released, um, you cannot use your building layer inputs, meaning your Revit files. You would need to perform conversions first before you can create scene layer packages out of it, meaning you would need to have them as feature classes, as native file formats of the platform of ArcGIS Pro before you can create the scene layer packages. So with this one, even if I just dragged and dropped a Revit file and am currently viewing it within my ArcGIS Pro scene, I can use that Revit file layer that I am viewing here as an input dataset and convert it into a scene layer package. So that particular package can then be published into my ArcGIS Online or my portal for ArcGIS, depending on your needs, your business needs, to be used in my web mapping applications. Okay, so for this particular example, I have actually pre-run the Alice model because it takes some time to load. And the file or the resulting file that can be generated is a .slpk or a scene layer package that we call it. But for our demo, I will be using the house project since it's a relatively smaller file to show within this particular tool. So let me just go back to my drag and drop scene since I have my house project in here. And then I'll just call this Revit underscore sample underscore house. And then click run. Okay, so if the process has failed, which has actually happened here, you can click on view details to look at what possibly went wrong. Okay, so what happened here is earlier on there was a notification that the um, file that I dragged does not have the correct coordinate reference system. So that is what's causing the issue for this particular demo, for this particular tool to run successfully. But if you have properly geo-referenced your Revit models, they are where they should be on the surface of the earth, then you won't be having any problems with this, because I was able to create the Alice package out of it. So just to show you that it is actually the correct model, let me create a new scene and load test.slpk in. Okay, so I have my new scene here. I'll just drag and drop test.slpk. Alice at Mediapolis, as you can see here in Media Circle. And there we go. So let's try loading the full model. And yes, it loads. Right? Oops, sorry. So this is coming from test SLPK, the initial test file that I created. So as you can see, aside from having your structures here, if I click on any of the parameters or objects within the main building, within the main structures, it still has the asset information that has been recorded in Revit or in its original software application. Right. So these two tools definitely saves you time and allows for a efficient workflow in terms of conversion and allowing access to your data in several platforms. So with that, let me just return back into our slide deck. So we have finished looking at new BIM tools in ArcGIS. And to summarize, and as a final note, this is the idea that I would like to leave with everyone. So, yes, GeoBIM allows you to look at individual structures along with the respective built and natural surrounding environments. It provides you a holistic view, hence allowing you to create and to come up rather with sound and timely decisions regarding your projects. But aside from that, GeoBIM also supports and enables the development of smart cities and in turn smart nations by being made use of and enabling master planning as well. You can also apply it in capital projects, detailed designs, as we have mentioned earlier, with the specificities that you have within your BIM structures and models. Of course, we have mentioned several examples of it as you go through the construction life cycle phase, service delivery, and then finally, revenue generation. So that is the end of our webinar for this afternoon. And these are the resources. So once we convert this into PDF and upload it into the Esri Singapore events page, I will try to include the links um, as to where I have gotten the resources, especially the ones from BCA, the CIT map, the construction industry transformation map, as well as the integrated digital delivery, because those really are driving forces supported by the government themselves in order for us to digitally transform the AEC sector. And please check out our training calendar for upcoming trainings. I think we are also looking at BCP's business continuity plans regarding trainings. And then if you have inquiries, please do email us at connect@sgsingapore.com.sg. And now, yes, I think we have a couple of minutes. I almost took up the whole hour, but let's have a look at the questions that we have. Okay, what is the best recommended What is the recommended best practices for rendering GeoBIM without compromising performance of the ArcGIS Pro in a workstation and when published up to a web scene? So I think for this one it's quite technical. So you can refer to the hardware specifications for ArcGIS Pro, especially. Look at the performance. What type of BIM format can be loaded into ArcGIS Pro? So your BIM models, BIM structures, structural modelings, your CAD files, your IFC files. So those can be directly loaded and viewed within ArcGIS Pro. Is GeoBIM another extension from Esri? No, it is not. So GeoBIM, as we have uh, defined earlier, it is the process of integration between BIM and GIS along with the workflows that it has. Okay, will other attributes, example, material, etc., be converted to? Um, by converted, do you mean retained? If you mean retained, then yes, they will be in the attribute information of the converted feature class in ArcGIS Pro. Can ArcGIS Pro show indoor information too? Yes, as you can. I haven't just zoomed into the building earlier regarding Alice at Mediapolis, but if you have the information, if it is within the model, the BIM or CAD model that you have, then yes, you can definitely view it in ArcGIS Pro as well. Okay. Unfortunately, we are running out of time for this webinar. But yeah, if you have your questions or if I wasn't able to address your question within our session this afternoon, please do give us an email. I will be revising this to include my personal email address in the PDF file format. And please, I would like to remind everyone to fill in the survey at the end of the session. So once I close off the session, once we end the webinar session, a pop-up window will immediately appear within your screen and it won't take too much time. So please fill it up, especially for those attending from SILA. Again, a reminder to please key in your SILA membership number or your LA accreditation number for you to receive the 2 CPD points. If you don't do that, you won't be receiving the CPD points. All right. So, with that, again, I am Sarah Villavicencio, and hopefully, we would like to see you on our upcoming webinars within our GIS conversation program in Esri, Singapore. Stay safe, stay home, and safe. Stay safe, stay home, and stay healthy, everyone. Have a great afternoon, and goodbye.